Welcome to Literary Corner. My name is Heron, and today we'll begin our journey through my novel, Shadows of War. Book the first, the prophecy continues. Let's begin. We will begin at the prologue. The day was changing from dusk to twilight, but the skies appeared as clear as a shallow forest pool. The ground was crowded with Sinatra soldiers and Malay matans. Sinatra soldiers were moving. Groups of 12 moved hither and thither, like insects in their crevices, while in front of doorways, Sinatrals were motionless as a plumb line. They were as mute as an iceberg, and they were as still as death. They stood like a wave beat from rock. There were vagabonds, like in all civilized systems, sitting all around. They weren't dressed well. Rags, and of course clothes, were their attire. They were of all alien species. They weren't attentive. In alleys and corners they sat. In one, they all looked at an odd-looking and new hobo. He carried himself in a way far different than themselves. He was looking at the beings in pain across the corner. He was looking from the side at the serfs. He looked very familiar to the public hobos. He was a human being. His features were very fine. He had high to medium cheekbones, smooth nose, and a gray mustache and gray beard. His face was clean with no scratch of dirt. It was clean like a person of importance. Or at least, he used to be a person of importance. He looked like a person hidden. No, he looked like a celebrity. It was like it was after his finances were as flat as paper. The face of this fellow was red and angry. It was flushed with a suffusion that crimsoned his whole countenance. But he was greatly under control. He wasn't like a maniac enraged. Only very few could possibly do such a thing calmly when angry and never move out of control. All of the small number of the alienated human beings in the alley looked at him. They said many things. They all were coming to their own conclusion of who this man was. They were making some assumptions of his identification. They spoke of many words like, "It's Bronk," which was an athlete in the FGP, the foil ground players. Others muttered and said, "Louis Dilo. He was once an alderman in the last days of the old Parliament." The man they spoke of was a very important person in the final times of the Galactic Forum. "He's committed to treason. He's committed of performing treason." Then another in the back said, "It's the infamous Temen Okisa." He was a criminal. He was also known for being an intricate part of the Forum denouncement movement. The voice continues, attempting to speak to just the small surrounding. "He was once in his youth a zealot with the Dire Coalition. They say he escaped from Dakapi 12 weeks ago, and now the warrant is out for his arrest. The board is still trying to get him. He's probably here for Mindon involvement, or maybe Imperial." As the being in the background said that, he continued to finish smoking. Everyone started to mumble alone in single groups. Then a lone voice spoke from the far end of the alley and said in a feeble and youthful voice, "He moves like one of the protectors. He looks like a Sigian. It could be..." Then a loud voice screamed. It was a woman's scream. "Ah!" The man, which his face was covered in a hood, turned around and faced the hobos. When he turned around, they looked at him. His face was cowled, and it was very difficult for any of the hobos to see his complete face. When the man turned around, he saw nothing. He then turned around again, and his back was to the hobos on the ground. He then looked once more at the serfs. The man looked so familiar. He looked real familiar. He looked like somebody else. He looked like an older version of... No, it couldn't be. He looked like an older version of... Seagal? It was Seagal also. He stood and watched the serfs build. He was wearing very worn down garments. It looked just like the clothes the ones sitting on the ground would wear. Rags and old dingy garments, except he had a cloak and hood. Seagal looked at the serfs. They too were building. They were building something different than the other serfs across town. They were building shrines. These were building these shrines that represented the power of the Vartals. This command was given by Gyro, the Minotaur, and he was told to do this by Nebulon. Nebulon was told to do this by his master. Since the planet followed the rules of the Shadowed Empire in secret, they had to listen to all of the commands of Nebulon's master. The serfs were told to build it without any help. That included no machines. There was no construction and batons working in the process. They had to use their regular mortal physical strength. Seagal stood on the side. He watched the men and children pull the hundreds of rocks in a unison motion. He wanted to help them, but he knew he wasn't supposed to do that. He wanted to be as bold as a hawk, even though everything that was going on was against his principles and morals. He knew it was wrong. It was against everything that was considered right on the moral stage. He wanted to stop this, but he knew that wasn't part of his mission. All he could think of was this. Find them. Find them? He was an old man now. He wasn't a youth like on his other single mission before. It was 25 years since the battle which gave him great fame. He was about the age of 60 now. He was now the truest mortal master. He was given the title that was passed to him. He was the Magnate. And even though he was the Magnate of the Stygian Brotherhood, he still followed directions like a cadet or an obedient Stygian officer. He followed directions of Jorindi as if he was still an acolyte of his on a mission voyage. He was waiting. Time passed. He was waiting for the mirror of the great star to show his power. He was trying not to be noticed by any Sinatra soldier or imperial officer. He then started off and began to walk. While he was walking, he was trying to be hidden. He attempted to do this behind wide poles, paces, walls, engines, carriers, anything that was larger than himself. He then walked across the street in his refugee attire, holding the clip of the hood in front of the bridge of his nose. While he was watching from a distance, he saw some pillar towers in the distance blow up. These controlled a lot of the technological material in the area. Then the Melematons that was overseeing the process of service began to fire their Igor balls at each other. They were destroying each other. The pillar towers controlled many frequencies. This threw off all the wavelengths of the Matons. The towers were reprogrammed illegally from an outsider. The Matons were destroying each other. They were battling each other like they were on the battlefield. So God was amazed at the vision he was looking at. It was like the Melematons were having a rumble or a civil war of their own. While the Matons were battling each other, the identifier which who planted the virus in the Shadowed Empire's programming was getting chased by Imperial officers. No one saw his face, but a shadow outline running on the wall. It was like he was running in an alley. His height was like one of a tall midget. The officers were running after the crook. After a couple of minutes, the hacker was caught. They arrested him. They put him in a cage. Seagal saw all of this from the shadows, and in a great distance. The hacker was probably soon going to be presented to Gyro for his assassination in the mysterious persecution dome. Seagal saw this. He was upset, and he wanted to help the guy. The Matons stopped firing at each other. Everything was put back together after a while, and the Matons continued to watch the serfs exploring. Seagal continued to watch from a distance. He walked a distance away from the corner. He was still in Brunoland, on the planet Jolopel. He was really on the west side of the city. On this side, it was more Symmetrals than Matons. The Matons were watching the serfs. The Symmetrals were watching the perimeter, making sure no one was coming that wasn't in accordance with the Shadowed Empire. On this side, there were serfs too. He recognized that the serfs were building something else. It looked to be a war center. He walked to the side and used his Findy mind powers. He lowered his head and extended his hand forward halfway. He was attempting the mind control part and spoke to the Imperial officer. He asked him, "What are they building?" The officer responded, but had no clue he was speaking. He had no control of his presence, so the Findu was in charge. He spoke. "It is a culmination battle station." Seagull asked, with a frightened curiosity, "What is this for?" "This will be used to destroy anyone who attacks the planet, especially the void. The CGNs will not know what's planned next." "What's next?" "The Sovereign knows where the CGN," and a voice spoke to Seagull. Seagull listened to the voice, but he also could speak. But it looked like he was moving his lips. It was like no sound was coming out. Seagull listened to the voice. It was more like telepathy or something. "Move." Seagull knew he had to stop the building of this battle station. He was about to attempt to destroy it. He knew that was not what he was to do. It was not what he was put here to do. He then received a voice saying, "Follow your emotions. Go. You will meet them. It is destiny. Also, allow yourself to be caught." "To be caught?" Seagull then took the rifle from the holster of the Imperial officer. When he took it, he fired at many symmetries. He hit every one he aimed for. It was about 69 of them. They were scattered all around the area. He was doing very well. After Seagull shot the 69th symmetry, another symmetry soldier arrived. He shot a blast. The bolt flew from the rifle's barrel and towards Seagull's leg. It then swiped against the thigh of Seagull with the cloak and cowl covering his body and face. It injured his rectus femoris. He wasn't bleeding, but it was injured. Then behind him was a being. The being was in the shadows. The being then reached in a holster. There was some type of firearm. He then fired at the cowl face of Seagull, at the side of Seagull's neck. It was some kind of a dart. It made Seagull weak. Seagull then lost control of his physical body. Seagull then fainted backwards. Fortunately, he fell and the cowl still covered his eyes. The identity was not shown. He was safe. Then two young Imperial detectives grabbed his arms. They then raised him up, but they didn't know who he was. They then just tossed Seagull inside some type of a cage carrier. It was very similar to what they did to the hacker. He was thrown in there to be sent to his death. He was sent to have a final audience with the leader of the Mendon and the extended territory. He was sent to sit with rebellious citizens and the serfs of the planet. But a serf was a very strange thing. Why was it strange? The serf process? Slavery? Wasn't something seen for millennia. Thank you for watching this segment. So please, if you like what you hear, tap the like button and also please subscribe so you can hear the continuing story of Shadows of War. Book the first, the prophecy continues. My name is Heron, and thank you for joining me on Literary Corner. God bless.